Welcome into the first episode of the Boys Collective here on 105 Through the Fan here on YouTube. My name is Kevin Gray, alongside Super Bowl winning scout and 1/4 of the GBAG Nation, Bryan Broaddus. Bryan, what's going on, man? Appreciate you joining me.
Thanks, KG. I'm really excited about a little project that we're going to work on every week, talking about this football team and how things might play out as we navigate this season already.
Yeah, we will be doing this at least 3 times a week. The Boys Collective with KG and Broaddus is what we're going to call it. And we're going to talk about America's team on the home of the Dallas Cowboys, 105 Through the Fan here on YouTube. So make sure you subscribe to 105 Through the Fan here on YouTube. Hit that notifications button and you can be notified when me and Broaddus jump on the Boys Collective podcast here for 105 Through the Fan. So, Bryan, let's just jump in. The Cowboys get a 36-28 win over the Carolina Panthers on Sunday, move to 3-1 on the season. Your overall thoughts on the game itself, the way things played out, but more importantly, how the Cowboys were able to take care of the number 1 defense in the National Football League in the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, KG, I thought it was going to be a tough, tight game, and at least through the first half of the game, it was kind of a little bit of a nip and tuck. Offenses seemed to have their way. And then, there was some down and distances where, they were able to get off the field, really both teams. It was kind of a wild into the first half with the Cowboys getting the ball back, trying to drive the ball. They can't get in field goal range to take the lead. Carolina's got the lead going into half. And you're wondering, okay, who is going to make the better adjustments in the second half? Who is going to figure out the other? And it was clear that Kellen Moore had a good plan in the second half, what he wanted to do to get some offense going, to protect better, to get the ball down the field. Running the football was huge for the Cowboys in this game. And then Dan Quinn, they were, after the missed field goal on Carolina's first drive, they were able to shut down Carolina, and the Cowboys offense took advantage of that, 3 straight possessions. And that's really what set the game apart for the Cowboys in that particular situation.
Yeah, the turning point coming with Zane Gonzalez missing a 54-yard field goal. The Dallas Cowboys able to capitalize on that. They scored 20 unanswered points in that third quarter alone. I thought the ground game, especially in the second half, Ezekiel Elliott, especially on that first touchdown drive in the third quarter, where Amari Cooper scored the 35-yard touchdown pass. He had 3 carries for 21 yards. A physical brand of football I felt was played, especially in the second half. I mean, they had 92 yards rushing in the first quarter alone, which really gave you an idea that this team was looking to run the football and run the football effectively. And they did so to the tune of 245 yards on the ground. What's interesting, and this is for folks who think that the Cowboys may need to run the football more. So they moved to 27-0 now under Dak Prescott when they run the football more than they actually have pass attempts. So in this game, the Cowboys ran the ball 34 times for 245 yards. Dak Prescott only threw the ball 22 times, did have the 4 touchdowns. But for those who think, well, maybe you need to set the tone with the ground game, that will be something that I'm sure they would try to use to back that up. But it seemed like Dak Prescott was in full control of this offense and was really getting in and out of plays and dialing up plays along with Kellen Moore that gave him opportunities to take advantage of the Panthers, especially in the run game.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't feel like that Dallas would be able to bully Carolina up front the way they were. Now, Carolina's a little bit lighter on the edges, and they were able to take advantage of that. But if you look at some of the best Cowboy runs, whether it was Zeke or Pollard, it was in the middle of that Carolina defense. They did a great job of getting blockers up on the second level. They secured down guys on the long run that Elliott had. You had a really good double team block between Martin and Steele. You had the tight ends kick. I mean, there was even Amari Cooper got a little bit of a shield block there too. So, if you're going to run the football, you got to be physical. You have to have hats on hats. And the Cowboys did a great job of that. And Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard, give them a lot of credit for seeing holes, getting to holes, and then getting through those holes.
The Cowboys scored 20 unanswered points in that third quarter, really blowing the game wide open. And we can't forget about what this defense continues to do. Trayvon Diggs continues to impress, a guy already coming off an NFC Defensive Player of the Month win. Starts off where he left off at in the month of September. 2 more interceptions on Sunday against the Carolina Panthers. He now has 8 interceptions in his last 9 games already 5 interceptions to the first 4 games. I've been extremely impressed by just not the amount of ball skills that he's had, but he continues to take chances, but more importantly, calculated chances on jumping routes and being able to make plays. What have you thought about his progress from year 1 to year 2 to really give him the opportunity that he could be a potential shutdown corner in this league?
Yeah, the kid has played in a lot of big games in his life. And, if you go back to even the draft where the Cowboys, took him in the second round, talking to people over there with the Cowboys, they were telling me, hey, listen, if we got completely wiped out, Diggs would have been a consideration there instead of the CD Lamb pick. It just happened that Lamb fell in their lap. And then the draft gods smile on him and get him all the way to the second round. I think the things that you saw at Alabama, you see here with the Cowboys. He's got length. He's competitive. He doesn't have one of those guys where it's a burst or great speed, but his ability to stay with receivers, the ability to fight, to compete, those are the things that serve him well. He's traveled with all the best so far through 4 games. You just throw your best receiver out there, and he's had to travel with those guys. So, that's the thing I think that's been the most impressive about him is every week he is going to take your best receiver, and he's able to make these types of plays.
And I will say at times in the first half, DJ Moore at times did get the best of him, but you give Diggs credit for having, that amnesia, if you will, forgetting that play and moving on to the next one, and allowed him to make a couple plays, especially blowing things over for the Cowboys in the second half here. So Trevon Diggs continues to play tremendous football. Let's move on to our Cowboys star of the game. Obviously, a lot of guys contributed to this win, their 3rd win in their first 4 games this season, playing the kind of complimentary football I think that the Cowboys fans have expected them to play, given the comments that we heard from them throughout this offseason. Who was the one player for you that stood out on Sunday that really said, hey, for Bryan Broaddus, this guy really made a huge contribution and stuck out to me on Sunday?
Yeah, I think you have to look at a guy that's played really 2 good games in 1 week. If you go back to Monday Night Football and then go to Carolina, I think you have to talk about Randy Gregory. And Randy Gregory was very close on Monday night to getting sacks, a lot of pressure. When you have a defensive lineman that's able to get holding calls on those blockers, I think that says a lot about him. Randy, this is the first season he's really had where he hasn't had things hanging over his head, suspensions, injuries, anything like that. He came in full off season, and he's taken really good advantage of that. In that Carolina game, you look at what him and Parsons were able to do rushing the passer. They switch off sides, so you don't really get a good beat on where he's going to be. But I was super, super impressed by his ability to push the middle of the pocket, to beat the center's block, to get a sack, to go around the edge. I mean, Randy's doing it at all kinds of different levels, and I kind of feel like that he's going to get better every week once he is, he's comfortable, but I think there's a level to his game that we can even take it even higher than what we've seen right now as a pass rusher.
Yeah, Randy Gregory was tremendous on Sunday with the 2 sacks, constantly putting pressure on that Carolina Panthers offensive line, making things miserable for former Dallas Cowboy right tackle or left tackle, I should say, Cam Irving, who, of course, used to play for the Cowboys. I think for me, I'm going to go with the rookie Osa Odighizuwa. He continues to flash and play extremely good football. And I think what's encouraging most about his performance is that this Cowboys defense particularly isn't fully healthy yet. You thought coming into the season, Neville Gallimore would be your starting, interior lineman there. But Odighizuwa's come in, really played well, continues to put pressure up the middle, and he's helping make plays for his teammates around him. I've been really impressed with him so far and how the moment hasn't gotten too big for him, and he's stepped in and he's getting better week over week. And I think that's really been a real pleasant surprise, I'm sure, not just for Cowboys fans, but for the staff themselves to know that Odighizuwa has been able to come in right away and to play the kind of ball that he's been playing. Had another half sack on Sunday and just continues to put pressure up the middle. So for you, I'm sure as you scouted him that this was something that potentially was there, but now he's actually putting it all together, it seems like, even early on as a rookie so far.
No, you're right, KG. And there's things I've been talking to people in the organization about him. There's a lot of folks that were like saying, well, his brother was a bust. His brother was a bust. And, maybe there might be some carryover to that maybe that he was going to be a bust. The father's really involved in a lot of things. There were a lot of things kind of swirling around him. But, if you look at how him coming in and playing, they've had a vision for him, playing that under tackle, that 3 technique, getting up the field, playing the run, getting off blocks. This is guy is just not up the field and let's see what happens and get blocked out of the play. He fights blocks. He gets off. He makes tackles. He's very, very active inside. And so, yeah, it's got to the point where we've even had some discussions about, well, what's going to happen with Neville Gallimore when he comes back? Are you just going to bench Osa and say, well,
you can't take him off the field, right? You can't take him off the field at this point.
Dan Quinn and the coaches over there have got to feel like, hey, if you're Neville Gallimore, you've got to come back in and prove that you're one of the best defensive linemen they had. A lot of it's going on, too, with Tank Lawrence at defensive end. They're getting pressure. Not that you want to say, oh, we're going to bench Tank Lawrence or you want to bench Gallimore, but it's to the point where they've had some success without those 2 players playing on defense. So that, if in your mind as a Cowboy fan, you have to feel, well, that, man, when these guys come back, how do you put them in? How do you get going? But the guys that have filled in so far have been outstanding for them.
And that only bodes well for the depth of this team going forward for the rest of this season, that these young guys are stepping up in big spots. The moment won't be too big for them as they get deeper and deeper into the season when these games really start to matter as you're moving toward a playoff run. As we get ready to close our show for today, let's open up the Broaddus Files here. Obviously, Super Bowl winning scout, you know this team intimately. You've covered this team, worked with this team. Let's open up the Broaddus File here. What was a note or something that stood out for you in particular on Sunday that not only could be positive for this team going forward, but something that you'll look to see them carry on throughout the season, especially as they get ready to play the New York Giants this weekend?
Yeah, I think, KG, when you look at what happened at right tackle, the more you really watched what was going on with Terrence Steele, and let's be real honest, Terrence Steele has far exceeded anything that he was able to do last year. They got help for him for that Chargers game. He had a lot of one-on-one blocks in the Philadelphia game and made it fine. Maybe wasn't one of his best games this past week, but the team still had success running the football. And I think that's something when you talk about this Cowboy offensive line and maybe going forward that, if here's a guy that it was kind of on the edge, the tight ends don't block really great all the time, but they were able to make it work. They physically got after, Martin, Broaddus, those guys. Broaddus has had his struggles as well, and they were a much better team inside than they were against Philadelphia or Tampa or any of those things. So I kind of feel like, though, that maybe some of the things are turning the corner. But, as soon as you could get Lyle Collins back, I think it's going to be fine. But tip of the cap to what's going on with Terrence Steele. Probably didn't play his best game this past week, but able to get by, and they continue to get by with him. And he's given them, 3 starts and 3 wins. You can't just wave your hand about that and say that was lucky. The kid's come in, he's done a really nice job for them. And, let's see what the Giants this week and how that matchup will unfold as we get ready for that game this weekend.
Give credit to Terrence Steele. This is an organization, as you've noted and as others have noted, they've believed in him, whether it be Joe Philbin, the offensive line coach, or the organization themselves. They've stuck with this kid from Texas Tech, and so far it's paid off. The patience has paid off with Terrence Steele. You just hope as this season continues to go on, he will continue to develop that confidence. And more importantly, once Lyle Collins comes back and establishes himself again at that right tackle position, again, another depth position that has been established by this team by the fact that Terrence Steele has had to play meaningful snaps so far, and he's continued to, for the most part, play well as the Cowboys have needed him to.
Yeah, and KG, one thing on the defensive side, maybe not the best game for a Leighton Vander Esch and guys like that, but you look at what was going on with the defensive line. Tip of the cap too to Anthony Brown. Anthony Brown, I thought, was a liability. I was really, really worried. Kelvin Joseph just didn't, that hasn't materialized. He's been banged up. But the last 2 games, you look at Anthony Brown. Anthony Brown has raised the level of his game. My dollar store safeties have all done a really, really nice job there. What's going to happen with Donovan Wilson? When Donovan Wilson comes back, are you going to take, Javon Curse off the field? I don't think so. I mean, there's some guys that are going to have to kind of fight their way back into this lineup, but the guys that are being asked to play, the backup guys, have so far so good. been coming up well. But I did want to give a tip of the cap to Anthony Brown because I've been very, very critical of his play going into this season.
No, I agree, because at the first of the season, I was like, that is not who I want starting opposite Trevon Diggs going up against Tampa Bay and that offense. Right. And for a while there, it seemed like that was not going to be a good plan. But so far, at least the last, especially on Sunday, Brown acquitted himself well. I love what you mentioned about the safeties. I always tell folks all the time, the Cowboys like to go flea market flipping, try to find the bargain basement hunter that they can. And so far, it's working out with these safeties, and give them credit. Jaron Kearse, who I thought has been really good so far through the first 4 games, has really flashed for this football team. That is the first episode of the Boys Collective here on 105.3 The Fan. Kevin Gray, Bryan Broaddus. Again, we will do this at least 3 times a week here on 105.3 The Fan here on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to 105.3 The Fan on YouTube. At some point, also, this will become a full-fledged podcast when we get this thing really up and running. But we really wanted to get this out to you to really get you an idea of what to expect here going forward, and looking forward to doing this with the Super Bowl winning scout, Bryan Broaddus, each and every time we jump on here on 105.3 The Fan. Again, you can find it on 105.3thefan.com, also on YouTube, social media platforms. Make sure you check it out. Bryan, appreciate you joining me for this first episode. Looking forward to the next one, and I guess go Cowboys, right?
Absolutely. Go Cowboys. Thanks, KG.
Appreciate it.